So while Congress is dealing with President Trump's second impeachment, the Biden administration is focused right on crafting a stimulus package, reportedly of at least $1.3 trillion, a number that might be increasing as Biden's transition team uncovers more information about the Trump administration's terrible handling of the vaccine rollout.
So joining us now to discuss, White House economic reporter for the Washington Post, Jeff Stein. He's always got the goods. Jeff, welcome back to the show. Good to see you, man.
Love being on. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. So give us a little bit of an outline here. Biden is, we have one of your tweets we could throw up there on the screen, looking at about a $1.3 trillion package. Some reporting over the last 24 hours or so talking about Biden expanding the child tax credit. What do we know about the dollar figure, about the programs, and about the Biden team's thinking in light of the Georgia Senate results?
So the Biden people are keeping the overall price tag of this very, very close to the vest for now. I have also heard this $1.3 trillion figure as sort of the minimum, the low bar of what they're likely to do. But what the Biden people are hoping for is that they get Republican support for this effort. And it's a little wonky and a little inside the beltway kind of stuff, but it is important in this case. The Biden people are hoping to pass this bill through what's called regular order, which would allow them, which they would need 60 votes for, including, which would require Republican support. Now, that would allow them to move more quickly and would allow them to save what's called the reconciliation vehicles that only require 51 votes support. But that could take longer. That could take months or weeks for them to do. So they're hoping right now, maybe if they have a slightly lower price tag, they can do this in a bipartisan way, and then they can come back and do their other plans with just 51 votes. But at least $1 trillion is what we're hearing.
Okay, so how realistic do you think it is that they would get that many Republicans on board, especially when you're talking about state and local funding, which has been a sticking point the whole time along? And also, I'm not sure how many Republicans really want to give the new Biden administration a significant win in this way. And then second part of the question, how much of this could be done through budget reconciliation, which, as you point out, would only require that bare majority of votes?
So I feel like the odds of the requisite number of Senate Republicans supporting this for them to get to 60 is really, really small. I mean, you need 9 Senate Republicans at a time where the party will be, facing new pressure to withhold votes from the incoming administration, and where Republicans will be looking for some sort of political wins after the disaster of the last few weeks. And some of the Senate Democrats I've talked to, Senator Brian Schatz told me this on record. He was saying, look, if we don't get Republican votes, we need to be prepared to move very, very quickly to do this on our own. I think, it seems like it's a while away, but the bill that Congress passed in December extended unemployment benefits for 20 million plus people until the middle of March. And that sounds pretty far away, but there really isn't going to be that much time. And if the Biden people spend too long trying to chase, maybe the great white whale of bipartisan support, they could put a lot of those people in jeopardy. And so there are real human consequences if Biden's desire to reemerge as this sort of bipartisan figure of yore, if that distracts them from, this critical economic need when they have the votes to do it unilaterally, that could be a decision that a lot of people will second guess.
So let's talk about Joe Manchin then there, Jeff, which is that he told you originally he was against $2,000 checks. Then he walked it back a little bit. Where does that stand, and what does that mean for the overall price tag figure? I imagine there's a lot of calls between him and the Biden team right now.
Yeah, he spoke to my colleague Mike DeBonis. I had the tweet about it, so I got the...
Got it. You got the credit.
Some of the, but Manchin... his position is essentially that he is skeptical about the checks' efficacy. He does not believe that they should necessarily be the top priority. He's not ruling out support for a package that includes the checks, as far as I can tell. But he has this line that, is quite common among Democratic policymakers and Democratic think tanks, that this, the savings rate is already very high and the checks are wasteful. The counter view to that is that, the checks are incredibly popular politically, and they reach a ton of very poor people who are outside of the UI systems. We had a story recently that over 1 million people, I think that's probably a lowball estimate, over 1 million people do not qualify for unemployment benefits because, the unemployment systems are rickety. They exclude a lot of people who should qualify. And the checks are really a way around that for a lot of people. And more to the point, there was this amazing study that came out from ITEP, a sort of left-leaning Democratic aligned think tank, but reputable. And they found that for the poorest fifth of Americans, the $2,000 stimulus checks would increase their overall income for the entire year by 30%. And I think, if you have a high income, $2,000 check may not sound like that much, and it may not be that much to you, but for the bottom fifth of the country, this is a 30% boost to their income. Obviously, the checks also go to people who have not lost their jobs and don't need it, and that's the point that Manchin and others are making in their skepticism.
Yeah, God forbid that people have a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of savings. Yeah. Can't have that. So, Jeff, just lay out for us in terms of the emerging details in what the Biden administration, the incoming Biden administration, actually wants to pass. What are some of the pieces that we know about in addition to the checks?
So I think we reported last night that in addition to the checks to 2,000, they want to extend unemployment benefits until September. As I mentioned, those are going to expire in March. That's actually kind of a rejection of what some Democrats have been pushing for, which is to have what are called automatic stabilizers, a little in the weeds, but basically to tie unemployment benefits to general economic conditions. So if the unemployment rate surges again, the unemployment benefits kick back in. That seems to be off the table. They also are looking at massive amounts of money for vaccine distribution. That seems to be their main focus. And I think their sort of play with Republicans, are Republicans really going to vote against a massive plan to increase vaccine distribution, money for outreach, money for ramping up production, money for distribution? That's a key focus. There also is going to be some form of state aid, but it's possible, I was hearing earlier this week, that they don't call it state aid. They call it transit money and education money that helps the states but isn't direct state aid, with the hope that allows states to, that allows Republicans to support the bill.
Yeah. You got to love Washington.
It could work. I don't know. The Manchin Romney plan did something similar, but yeah, it is a little semantic at the same time, for sure.
Sometimes,
yeah. And then just quickly, the thing we broke last night is this child tax credit expansion, $3,600 per year per kid. That's a major new benefit. There's a lot of questions about whether another round of checks is more easy to implement than this, but we have a huge problem of child poverty in this country. Poverty in America is centralized among people who are not working. We passed Social Security in the 1930s that dramatically reduced the amount of poverty among the elderly. But while other nations have taken similar efforts to extend benefits to children who obviously are not working, America has not really done that. And so we could be seeing a major expansion of child benefits and a potentially pretty significant reduction in poverty. Of course, Republicans may point out, hey, that's not really COVID relief if you guys are trying to do this major, permanent expansion in welfare for children. But that's a major component of this as we're learning.
Yeah, it's very important. I'm a big supporter of that policy. Anyway, Jeff, thank you for joining us. Thanks for the update, man. Really appreciate it.
Great to see you, Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Always. Coming up, Silicon Valley and unions, not always synonymous, but some Google workers are changing that. A software engineer is going to tell us more about the 700 workers who now make up the Alphabet Workers Union. That's when Rising returns.